I don't approach technology to learn how to use it. I approach technology to understand what it can do, because those are two different things. I think if you approach technology and how to use it, then you become a user, and that's you'll get constrained in the box. When you look at technology and ask to understand what it can do.
From Numeric, this is Incoming Statements, the podcast built for forward-thinking accounting pros. Join Anthony Alvernaz, Numeric's co-founder and chief product officer, as he talks with accounting leaders about what practices and philosophies are defining modern financial operations. So grab your coffee, throw on some headphones, and let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Incoming Statements. I'm your host, Anthony Alvernaz, and this episode is brought to you by Numeric, AI-powered close and reporting automation for leading accounting teams. Today, our guest, Jason Pikoos, is the managing partner of technology and innovation at the Connor Group. Jason, thanks so much for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thanks for including me. I'm really looking forward to the session today.
As are we. I'd love to start with a really open-ended question here. Who are you?
Great question. Who am I? That's a very big question. Jason Pikoos. I'm a managing partner at Connor Group. I've been with the firm for 13 years. Not to get too far into my weeds on my background, I joke I'm an accountant by birth. So I started as an accountant. I've wanted to be an accountant since the age of 13. Did audit, external, internal, advisory, and I joined Connor Group 13 years ago to kind of build out finance transformation and digital transformation. So that's me in a very, small nutshell, and excited to be here today.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to have you. Talk me through what drew you to accounting. If you were to go as far back as you can recollect, where did the interest come from? What, at the earliest age, where were you accounting earliest in your life?
I think maybe it's genetic. My mom was a bookkeeper / accountant when I was growing up, and I used to go work with her at the office. And things are a little different now. Where there wasn't, I don't think there was a graphic user interface on the computer that she was working with, but I just enjoyed the exercise of knowing how money flowed. And it's something that has come true. Is I do believe that if you understand how the kind of what you might think of the lifeblood, the financials, the numbers flow through a business, if you understand those, you understand a lot about how businesses operate. And therefore, it's just always been exciting to me. And and I frankly also like it when a balance sheet balances, I confess.
So, something innate in the feeling of satisfaction of this thing works. Yeah. What I'd like to understand, when you think about how accounting has changed and how much time you've spent across different systems over time, what do you think has remained true or most true about the function?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the end of the day, accounting is a core component. And I know it's oftentimes referred to as back office, and there is a truth to that. But at the end of the day, accounting is a critical component of the business. I forget who coined the phrase, but what gets measured gets done. And yes, that typically is referring to metrics and analytics, but actually at its core, it's also referring to accounting. At the end of the day, it tells us how we're doing as a business. It's telling us where we invested correctly and where we invested incorrectly, where the resources are going, the good decisions and the bad decisions. So no matter where the technology goes and the process goes and the profession goes, accounting remains a critically important component of a business. And frankly, it's a critically important component of our financial institutions and our financial infrastructure. Investment on Wall Street is based upon the financial performance of a company now into the future. And there's none of that if you're not doing it, if you don't have accounting.
Certainly. When you think about some of the work involved and what has taken shape in terms of what's automatable, what's not, the general thought of really think critically about what one is doing, what's repetitive, what's not. Where would you say some of your earliest fascinations with automation come from? If you were to think back, anything in life prior to accounting or in addition to or separate from accounting that has you fascinated about automation as a general concept?
It's interesting. I don't know if it was necessarily automation in itself. I think I kind of have this innate, I don't know if it's genetic or it's just built into my DNA, but process improvement is something that I feel like I do. From down to even how I make coffee in the morning, it's like, well, if I do it in this sequence, it's just a little bit more efficient. So this process transformation, this driving productivity and efficiency was something it's something that I do and something I enjoy doing. I get a great amount of pleasure in achieving those kind of outcomes. I did lean much more heavily into the kind of the accounting and the functional side. And I think over the last probably 15 or so years have really realized that although you can certainly improve things through process and through policy and through good behavior and good people, to really flip the kind of really take that transformation to the whole new level, automation is important. And that probably is where I really started getting my fascination with technology. And since then, I invested a lot of time understanding just the basic functions. And it's interesting. I think I approach technology different. I don't approach technology to learn how to use it. I approach technology to understand what it can do, because those are two different things. I think if you approach technology and how to use it, then you become a user, and you'll get constrained in the box. When you look at technology and ask to understand what it can do, now you have the opportunity to think about, okay, what am I trying to achieve? And you can use it in many different ways. And that has been something where I've just invested a lot of time across many, many different technologies. And then it advanced to understanding how they connect and all that type of stuff. So my fascination probably drives more from a process improvement and optimization, and then a recognition that technology, to really get there, you have to have technology, especially in the world that we operate.
Totally. I think that kind of concept of what technology is prescribed of as a solution with a very concrete set of steps on how to use it, versus thinking more abstractly about the capability and how you can reapply that sort of capability. There's very likely not been another time like the one we're in now, with the advent of some of the latest AI advancements of the last couple of years, where that's ever more true, right? The very notion of prompting a model is really to say, do you understand what its base capability is? And now it's a matter of how well can you ask it for what you're looking for, at least from a sort of content generation standpoint. Talk me through, to that end, this notion that you think about of the technology conundrum, and how teams might over-index on how much software they actually need, and what makes for basically the right environment for someone to realize a lot of automation potential.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, that one. And I think it's funny, I'm old enough to remember the days where everybody tried to stuff everybody in everything into their ERP, and you bought SAP and Oracle and everything needed to be in there. Then the cloud came out, and then there was a recognition that actually there's a lot of very simple tools that are easy to implement. Cloud, and now there was a shift away from everything in the ERP to some degree of effectively best in breed. The problem that created, and the conundrum that you're alluding to, is what I refer to as lots of technology, little automation. And we saw that, and we've seen it enormously over the last probably decade and a half, where people have really, it's like every time they try to solve something, it's okay, get another piece of technology, another piece of technology, another piece of technology, right? It's about what does this technology do, not what it is capable of. And if we continue to add more technology, what that created was automation in a space and complexity between those spaces. It created an enormous amount of technology, and I solve one thing and I break and provide another thing. So it is really interesting. Finance and accounting cannot complain that there are not enough systems. There are more than enough systems. It's still very, very manual. And that's what we're seeing. We're kind of this move towards, and we use the term advanced automation, which is a concept of using powerful technology, but using them in an advanced way. In other words, using the capabilities, not what you bought it for, but what it is capable of doing, and using it in concert with your entire tech stack. You've got data, you've got applications, you've got integration platforms, you've got AI now. If you understand the capabilities of these things and how they work together, you have an enormously powerful tool set of capabilities at your fingertips. The boundaries of automation have shifted, but only if you invest in understanding what it can be. Your example of ChatGPT was a perfect one. It's the reason why people don't necessarily use it, because it's like they keep asking the question, what am I supposed to use it for? I don't know. What do you want to use it for? What are you trying to solve? And I think that is a mindset shift we need to change. Focus on capabilities, not what you bought it for. Stop buying new technology to solve every single problem, but ask, hey, you got your set of capabilities, and then how do you orchestrate these things together? That is an amazing way where you'll have fewer technologies and much more powerful automation.
Totally. So what do you think is that happy equilibrium of, does this problem deserve a new piece of software, or does it deserve just a better way of looking at our process and how we stitch together what we already have? I guess more concretely, are there examples or scenarios that come to mind to you where you tend to see folks overbuy or overinvest in just another piece of software? Where do you see that mistake made most commonly?
You know, it is interesting, because I think when people approach a problem as a technology solution is where things go wrong. And what I mean by that is, I have a problem, oftentimes an undefined problem. Hey, like meaning things are manual, right? Oh, I've got a manual, everything's manual, it's painful, right? And they use these kind of generic type of terms. And then and then I index on a technology. So what happens is now I index on a specific technology, which means I've already actually concluded about what the problem is and how to solve it. I haven't actually evaluated the problem or determined the solution. I've jumped to the solution. I think that's where people make that mistake oftentimes, is they presume both the problem and the solution. They want to solve it they see it as a technology change, and therefore they go and buy another piece of software. And before I joined Connor Group, we worked with McAfee, and that was the way people just did it. Every time it kept buying more and more software, and it just created a mess, and it was really expensive. What's super important is, yes, things might be manual, very true for many accounting teams. Yes, things might be painful, very true. Yes, we might have a lack of controls. Yes, why? That's the thing. In there, for those very good, it's old school, Six Sigma, green belt, and all that type of stuff. Ask the question why 5 times. Why is it? What is causing it? Get down to the root cause of the problem. Once you have a problem, then you let that define the solution. And oftentimes it might be process. There are many cases it's just bad process. But also in most cases, I really truly believe it, that the constraints to the solutions to that automation are already in-house. And then it becomes a question of where is the gap? And I think that's where we see AI starting to come in, because there are clear gaps. The ability to read documents, the ability to make judgment calls through technology are reasons why things still have remained manual. But then you just need an extra little piece of technology, not an entire new 20 different systems to do something. So I think it's so important. Let your business problem and a defined, clear business problem drive the solution. And if the solution is technology, start with what you have. And if you then don't have it, then explore externally.
So let's think about that process of breaking down the problem to get to the problem, which is to say, I like that concept of stacking the why. Ask the why 5 times until you get to the root. What do you think prevents folks from getting there? Do you think it's just hard to continue asking why because at some point you reach a bottleneck or you reach a roadblock where it feels inappropriate to go further? Do you think that there's some sort of fundamental misunderstanding that can sometimes exist across a team, that you can only get to a certain layer of why before it's actually confusing and not clear where you go to find the answer to the other 2 or 3 whys that might be left? Talk us through, I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on how do you break that down? What makes that possible if it feels like it isn't?
Yeah, admittedly, there's some components of arrogance here. We feel we know the answer before we've asked the questions, and that's true. And no offense to anybody on this watching this video, but there is a component of that. I think some of it, to be honest, is also just being busy. Accounting teams, and there's a lot of research showing they're getting busier and busier, and the numbers are dropping. So when we are super, super busy, doing that deliberate conversation, it's not just a matter of being able to find the time to do it, but it's to find the headspace. That type of exercise requires you to be able to focus on it. If you are working 10, 12 hours a day, even if you were going to carve out 4 hours in the evening to do this, I mean, to be able to focus and understand, I think timing and capacity is a problem. So there is a degree of skill to this, to really challenge the why. There's a skill. And then I think sometimes people don't go, are unwilling or not even aware that you can go further back than they can. So they'll ask 1 or 2, not realizing they will ask the next why, and then they don't feel like there's a way to answer it, so they will stop, right? I think we sometimes got to pull out our technological prejudice into it. You cannot fix that. Therefore, no point in asking the why, because I cannot fix that. And I don't think that's true. You go there. You can always come back up the chain, but you should. So I do think there's a mix of reasons. Rarely is it laziness. I think it's just a matter of either experience, busyness, or a degree of annoyance.
Sure.
We know things.
Yep. Any ways you've thought about, if we take an example of a process that someone's evaluating a new system against, in any ways you've thought through how to ask the right questions, sort of ways of asking the why that can be effective?
Ooh, that's a good question. Sometimes the why doesn't actually have to be explicitly a why. Sometimes it's helpful to actually, part of it is, and I think it's really important. Like there's some of that arrogance. Being a consultant, we have the risk of walking into that arrogance space very quickly. Sometimes people believe that, and sometimes us consultants also believe that we know all the answers. First, if you're engaging, and especially if you're asking other people, when you ask the question why, it is really important that you actually listen to the answer. And I think this this is probably even well beyond just the process improvement one. But if you're walking in there and you think you know the answer and you're not listening, I think it's really important. The reality is there are many bad processes. few of them were built with the intent of creating a bad process. Most, 95% or whatever it is, were built because they were solving a specific need. Now, that need may have gone away. There may be better things to do it. But I think if you walk in there with a preconceived assumption, you're most likely to miss something. Because I think that's also one of the things. When people ask the why, they're not really understanding the context behind it. So I think sometimes it's a matter of the question is, why do you do it that way? What were the causes? What happens if you don't do it this way, right? I think it's really important that you understand the surrounding context, because one, it means that when you solve it, you don't break something because you missed it. But I also think, to be honest, when you question people on a why, sometimes people can take it quite personally. This is what I do day in and day out, and you effectively are making me feel either redundant, unnecessary, inefficient. So by asking why with the intent of understanding the other person's context and background, it becomes a cooperation. Hey, we are working together to solve this, to make your life easier. And I want to understand the full context behind why you have done it the way you have, and why people hand it off to you this way, so that we can make it better in the right way. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, certainly. And I think no more appropriate time to really be thinking critically about how we ask some of these questions, how we have some of these conversations, when we think about what work might become redundant, what work might become automated, how we best leverage, folks on a team to be doing their best work and also using their time most effectively, and not ignoring the fact that needs have changed or capabilities in this context have changed. I think the obvious sort of element of how do you leverage AI in your day-to-day workflows? How do you think more critically about how the different processes fit together? At least in our experience, we encounter a fair bit of understandable doubt or trepidation when it comes to using AI. You've obviously spent plenty of time thinking about different governance frameworks and how teams should construct some of their AI workflows. What do you have to say about the ease of really approaching AI governance in a way that folks might not be thinking about today? How do you sort of think about eliminating some of that trepidation and giving folks more of a sort of authentic way of approaching it?
Yeah, from the governance itself standpoint, I think people get intimidated by the word. It's a big word, quite a long word, and it has terrible connotations. But the reality, it's about being thoughtful about how you deploy technology so you can trust it before you drive. And that is important, especially with this technology, a degree of trust prior to efficiency. And I think that's where you get success. All we need to say is DeepSeek, and we probably all understand yes, there was great technology with an enormous amount of lack of trust, and it's causing a lot of concerns about the technology. So when it comes down to what I suggest is, hey, you can think about governance, and there's some good frameworks out there, but really 3 or 4 key things. Get a policy in place around use of technology, particularly AI. Number 2, make an inventory of the things that you have. Which technologies have AI? How are they being used? Just so that you have full-scale transparency. Number 3, think about how you go about evaluating these things, right? It doesn't have to be an overcomplicated, but recognize that AI particularly introduces additional risks into your tech stack, and therefore adjust how you evaluate. And number 4 is engage with your people. Right? I think it's many of these technologies, we've experienced it ourselves. We rolled out a chat capability. Some people use it a lot, many people don't. To just assume that you can throw technology at people and they're going to use it is false. If you want to get value and engagement and great ideas, by the way, because that's where the best ideas for some of these AI technologies are coming from the people that are using it, educate them, train them, coach them, give them the capabilities to be successful. I really do believe that it is both a shared responsibility. Us as companies have the responsibility to educate it and retrain our people to be ready for this evolution that is coming in how we engage and use technology. But we as individuals also have to take that personal responsibility. We sit on our backsides waiting for our companies to do it for us. That's a big mistake. We need to be investing. Sometimes it's not. Use ChatGPT at home. It doesn't have to be work-related, but make it part of your day-to-day. And then when opportunities are presented to you, or even proactively encourage your organization to give you guys training so that you can get yourself ready. Because this technology, I really believe it's going to be one of those things. Learning is going to be part of our day-to-days. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm curious, how do you think about approaching some of that re-education? Again, going back to that notion of there might be trepidation driven from a sort of fear of the tool in truest sense, being something that might be perceived as threatening or might be perceived as hard to verify, such that it creates additional stress if you're using it, and you're hearing on one side folks that are really pushing to say adopt, use.
Yeah.
It's the only way to work. On the other side, plenty of vignettes in the margins of something producing an inaccurate output. If you're performing a higher volume of work using tools like this, that creates a larger burden for some of that review and validation. Where do you think about, I guess, the sort of twofold piece there, which is overcoming some of that fear of leveraging some of these systems, and then also a really authentic approach to some of that validation, both in the systems that you might choose to trust, but then also how that really manifests in potentially a different way of working, in terms of, folks that are more fundamentally used to preparing work, maybe spending more of that time actually reviewing the outputs of another system rather than another person. Any thoughts there? Would love to chat through.
There's a lot there. I mean, one of the things, I must be honest, that this may be a bit controversial, but I actually think that although the risks of error coming out of AI is real, I think people use that as an excuse to cover up probably what are the two real reasons that people resist AI. So we say, it could be errors, it could be mistakes, confidentiality, but I actually think the two reasons are, one, people don't love change as a general sense. It's not true for everybody, but getting used to a new technology, especially one that actually feels uncomfortable. We are so used to the point and click, the navigation through menus and stuff like that. To come to a chat form of engagement with AI feels uncomfortable. So I think this discomfort with the technology stems from more of the use and how to interact with it and how to be very proficient with it. I think that's the one. And then I think the other one is a real concern about what is it going to be for my job. Am I going to have a job? Do I have to change a lot? Is my role going to change? I mean, there are some people that enjoy doing what might be conceived as kind of transactional work, right? They get joy in achieving what they might achieve, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think those are the two things that drive it. And I think that we use these other ones as easier justifications because they're less emotional. But I think there's a lot of a component that isn't emotional. I do think that it's, as once again, leaders of an organization, we have to have very honest and transparent conversations. I think many companies are going, down the road of it won't impact us. It's fine. That's not helpful because that's also not true and it's not genuine. The reality is this technology is moving at a lightning fast pace. Yes, came out was late 2023 when we had the first GPT, and it's not as if accounting and finance has changed, but it is rapidly evolving. Real use cases. We'll see so much more powerful applications in 2025. This will be adopted much faster than any other technology within an organization. The next 5 years, it will be a major, major sea change. We do our teams no favors by pretending that everything is going to be okay if we do nothing. I think it's important that we have those honest conversations about we are going to change, the org is going to change. For you to be successful, you need to change with us.
And what do we think that will look like? Where maybe 5 years ago we might have said, let's think about accounting in the year 2100. That might sound a lot more like what it does, what a thought experiment is like, to say, let's think about it in terms of 2030. Let's go into the room of let's call it a public company with a finance and accounting team in the hundreds potentially, that is multinational, has multiple currencies involved, with complex consolidations and intercompany eliminations and all of the fixings of a big international business. How do you think about that team changing over time, and how do you think about folks on that team, as you put it, who I think it's a very, very worthwhile thing to underscore, which is there might be work today folks are doing that they really do enjoy. And I think to what you were saying at the top of our conversation of really enjoying the satisfaction of a balance sheet balancing, it's, if you were to distill what it is they enjoy about that work, it is just that fundamental feeling of accomplishment, of getting something done that was productive. And that doesn't have to go away if what's being worked on today might be less manual or doesn't have to be done in the same way. To get back to the sort of notion of what do these companies, what do these teams look like in a few years' time, what are some of your thoughts? How does that team, that it might be hundreds of people today, change? What does it look like, and how are the folks who might have been doing work that was more manual, doesn't have to be done that way anymore? So thinking more tactically, what do these teams actually start to look like when there are substantively fewer folks on the team? What happens? And is that what happens? Do we expect to see the public company with hundreds of accountants fundamentally downsize? And if so, where are folks able to continue to add value? Because there are many thoughts that surely come to mind on the value of an accounting expert within an organization. But if that fundamentally manual work is no longer needed to be done in the way that it is today, and that means that there are fewer people involved in the process, how does the world look?
Yeah, it's a great question. So be careful. 5 years out in the world of AI is like a millennia. I do think teams will become leaner. Whether if they had 200 people today, do they get rid of a bunch of people between now and in 5 years' time? I don't know, because I do think that what you will have is there's a lot of work that accounting teams don't get to today. We admittedly shortcut some stuff because we don't have the time to do it. Whether that's the quality of review or analytics, whether it's process improvement, more business partnering. These are many things that we would like to do and we speak about, and yet we get stuck in the Excel file that I need to work through to close the books or post an invoice or whatever. I think in 5 years' time, many of the transactional stuff it'll be just normal for it. It'll be very powerful systems that can deal with it almost end to end. I think we will see leaner teams, but I also think we will see the mix of the people on the team change in terms of at least the skills. What we will see is those people coming out of college right now will be star players because they're going to come out next year, they're going to come out with an amazing combination of accounting technology skills. And most people coming out of college already know SQL and are, by the way, already users of ChatGPT and AI and all that kind of stuff. They will progress very quickly and they will get very significant roles and gain experience in a way that we have not seen before. In other words, they will skip when I started, you had to go through the grunt work and then you worked your way up. They're going to skip that. They're going to go straight into review and analytics and value add, which will be fun. I think the existing people in the organization are going to find themselves reskilling. I think it'll be super important that all of us recognize that for us to be successful in this new world of technology, we need to be techno-functional experts. It's no longer the purview of the IT department to be the experts on the technology. Yes, they may be the ones that own and manage the systems, but we will be the ones that need to understand how to use the systems. In many respects, these systems are going to give us the capabilities to automate ourselves in the context of some good governance frameworks. So it is going to be important that users and accountants become much more techno-functional, meaning having foundational skills, go learn SQL, get very comfortable with these technologies, understand the systems that you use, how they work, the capabilities. If we are just doing our processing, I think those are the individuals that are going to find themselves, I hate to say it, but probably, I guess, moving on from their current positions. And there is no doubt that from today, in 5 years' time, will the team size maybe be the same? That's possible. Will the same people be on the team? It's very likely we will see some turnover. Some people will be replaced by new people. Some people will find this uncomfortable. There will always be those companies that don't shift much. And I think any company that is more with a more modern approach to technology will see fairly significant changes in the coming 5 years. And that will definitely impact it.
So let's take that concept of spending time thinking critically about what one does in their day-to-day. And I like the approach you're proposing here, which is think about how you automate yourself. And there's obviously the very natural fear that comes in reaction to that of, well, if I spend time thinking about how I automate myself, what do I do, right? And I think this is broadly what many organizations will be grappling with, is this concept of if you automate away your own job, to your point, in the world of many finance and accounting teams, that merely means you're able to get to maybe the next set of things that were below the fold on the list of items to do, beyond the essentials that live in the month-end close checklists and the like. Yeah. But the other value add work that doesn't get to happen as quickly for teams. But if you continue to take that approach, which is automate what you're doing, automate yourself, eventually you're going to churn through that list of items as well, beyond what might be on the page today. And so where else do you think, I guess a twofold thought here. One, where else do you think teams can really spend time thinking critically about other work that could be helpful for the business, or other ways of approaching the output of that work that could be helpful? And two, just more generally, that fear, how overcoming that fear of investing in figuring out how I automate myself. There's a bit of a mindset shift involved in that. So much as a sort of organizational buy-in that if that's happening as an organization, you're committed to really figuring out how you best leverage the people who are talented and adding value to the company overall. So any thoughts you have there as well, I think would be quite helpful.
Maybe I'll tackle one of them. It's just maybe that mindset one. It's an interesting one. When we started, we jumped feet first into the AI and the technology space because we really saw it revolution. It hadn't actually moved much, but we saw this kind of revolution coming. And I'm a strong believer of sticking your head in the sand and hoping for the best is not going to result. You have two choices here. You either engage early and help carve and define the path, or it gets done to you. and you get to live with the consequences, and you have no choice because now you are stuck with where you're at and your skills. So I really believe it's like, you know what, be proactive, drive your behavior. It is here. We need to recognize that. And with that recognition, then comes the big question of, okay, what do I do about it? Because I do think people have a lot of fears. I think there's a lot of things that our more junior folks can be improve the quality of our reviews. We can certainly invest more time in actual continual process transformation. Organizations are not static. I think that's one of the things that we always assume. What happens is organizations are ever evolving. Finance and accounting can be a much more proactive supporter of organizational change. New product release, new market entry, right? New customers that you're engaging with, new methods of engaging with customers. Finance and accounting can be part of that process and help effectively do that, so it's done effectively rather than necessarily dealing with the pains on the back end. Analytics, proactive analytics, more in-depth analytics, business support. Our job shouldn't just be to review expense reports. Should we be asking ourselves, hey, are there better ways when we look at these things? Are there better ways for us to drive greater value? Can we bring these costs down? Are we spending in incorrect places? There are many, many questions that the accounting teams would love to answer, and they do not have the time. Those questions are being answered at a 10,000-foot level, oftentimes at the CEO or the VP level. But the reality is people that are more junior level can really look into that, can really analyze that. I think we can also get much more proactive. If you are not dealing with the day-to-day transacting, but are dealing with the day-to-day kind of management, you can very quickly, you can see things are wrong, or you can see things are going. Maybe somebody wants to make a big spend, or there's a big purchase order coming through. Hey, can we renegotiate? Can we deal with, rather than focusing on how I'm going to accrue for this? Right. So there's a lot of things that I think finance and accounting would love to do to be much more focused on the value add component of the business, the risk management component of the business, the quality of financial reporting, so that the CFO and the CEO can make better decisions. And that becomes available to us as a lot of these kind of transactional manual work is taken off our plates.
Yeah, certainly agree. And obviously have a bit of a bias in that we build a product for finance and accounting teams, but tremendously see the value every day of having folks with a finance and accounting background be involved in other aspects of the business, obviously in the product development side of the house, but also in things like sales and marketing, and being really clued in as an SME who is excited to just generally think about the world and think about how a product not just gets into the hands of the folks who find value from it, but also what it's actually doing once it's in their hands, and how is that value growing over time, and why is it useful, and how is that going to change. I think it is really the whole notion that finance and accounting background is really a mindset that is broadly applicable across across the functions of a business. Reflecting on all that we've been talking about here, I'm curious, concretely, how are you using your own AI expertise at the Connor Group to help consult not just the scaling companies that you all work with, but really internally? Where have you seen some of the biggest drivers of value? Where have you seen some of the trepidation, and how have you tackled that? Would love to get a little bit more context on what it's been like on the ground, call it over the last 12 months for you and your teams.
Yeah, it's a transition, and I think we're realizing it as well. I forget who exactly. I think his name is Mr. Dr. Wasserman Professor Wasserman from MIT. That organization technology changes quickly, organizations change slowly, and I'm paraphrasing. And we've seen some of that. We've done quite a few things. We did roll out a chatbot very early on, and it was a very powerful way, and it continues to be a very powerful way. I think what we realized was there are people that jump on it quickly and use it, and then there are many that use it very lightly. So we got the chat capability out. We've added many functions and capabilities to it. Our big focus now around that is now really educating the team to be very proficient with prompting and engaging, and really challenging themselves to think capabilities rather than here are the ways to use this product. So that is one where you'll continue pushing. And by the way, we're also looking to take that chatbot, if you wanted to, and spread it out to connect to more data sources. So not only is it being used by people to ask questions, but can it connect to policies and internal data and data sources. So it becomes that kind of one stop for people. So as opposed to them navigating through websites, got a question on our policy, go here. You want to ask ChatGPT something, go here. So that's one area. We have also been investigating third-party applications we can use internally. Some of those for gap accounting and research, some of those for documentation, where we actually, so it's our team using it for the purposes of delivering better services to our client more efficiently, to our client more consistently to our client. What's really interesting, it also enabled our teams to operate. So suddenly, our most junior people don't have to just do the documentation. The technology can do the documentation. They are actually learning to do a review. And that's a really interesting transition. They still are doing the interviews and having the conversations, but now they're doing review rather than a lot of manual framework. So we're using it in our delivery. We're also looking at tools for our operational side of our house, our finance team, our legal team. What are tools that they can use to be able to drive productivity and efficiency? And it's something that we are doing on an ongoing basis. We're never going to stop with this evaluation. What existing tools that we have? We use flow charting technology. They've rolled out AI. Okay, well, let's go investigate that and see, okay, and then let's roll it out. What other tools? What are the pain points that we are experiencing? PowerPoint presentation, project management. Okay, what are the tools? Do we have those tools? Are they working? And this becomes a cycle of regularly looking out, not necessarily tools for the taste of tools, but recognizing that we have regular business challenges and how can technology help us continue to progress. And that's kind of the culture that we want to embed, which is we are regularly going to evolve. We're never going to be kind of the static, because the rapid evolution of technology requires us to be working in that way. So it's fun, but it's certainly busy.
Yeah, certainly. And certainly sounds like challenging the organizational pitfall of being averse to change and just embrace it is what I'm hearing. And
absolutely.
Test, iterate, fail, embrace it. Totally agree. Awesome. Well, Jason,
and that's exactly.
Unfortunately, we're coming up on our time here. So where can folks learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I love to meet everybody. You can I think it's connorgp.com. You can go there. We also have an AI landing page. I don't know if we share contact details, but probably LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get hold of me if you really want to. I love chatting about AI. I'm at various events as well. So there's various automation events, but it's probably the best place to get hold of me.
Fantastic. Well, Jason, thanks again. Really appreciate you coming and spending time with us today. Great to have you on Incoming Statements, getting your take on the state of AI, the state of how teams will change, what it means to embrace the future, and surely more to come. So thank you again.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Incoming Statements, a production of Numeric. To learn how AI and automation are eliminating the manual burdens holding your accounting team back, visit numeric.io. Join us next time to hear from more top accounting voices on the challenges they're facing and where they see the industry heading.